Hello, friends. Welcome to Tammy's Knitting Podcast. I'm Tammy, and this is going to be part 3 of our Sock Tubes for Dummies series that I am putting out. Today, we are going to the last video we marked our sock tube, and we're got it ready to cut. We got it marked. Today, we are going to pick up our stitches and cut to the length that we need. So that's what we're going to do in today's video. I did get as you can see, I got the cuff done on one end so that I have plenty of ways of using my needles because I'm running short of needles. I have 2 or 3 pairs of socks on the needles, and I think I only have 2 circular needles right now that are thin that I like to use for this. So I will, now that they're marked, I'll show you guys how I pick up my stitches and cut and how I divide everything. So let me get the camera turned around so that you guys can see what I'm doing. Okay, so we have our sock tube marked. This is where we're going to actually put our heel when we go to figure it out. We have our cuff on here, and then this is our leg. Our heel is going to go here, and then we marked down here where we're going to actually pick up our stitches. So when you pick up stitches, you need to pick them up 1 row above where you marked and 1 row below. So this is where you need kind of 2 circular needles. And let me get my other one out. I have another one with a thin cord here. And I was going to show you the difference of the size cords, because on camera it doesn't look like they're that much difference, but held them together. This is a fixed red lace cord, and this is an interchangeable mini, and it's just it's a lot thinner. And you can use these ones. It's not a big deal. It's just these thin ones, it's easier to pick up the stitches when you are holding them. So I'll show you what I mean by doing that. Let's get that out of the way. Okay, so I have 2 needles. Don't need both of them right now, so let's put that one down here. Okay, so I'm hoping I'll be able to see well enough. Trying to do this. I have to have it in the camera, but I have to look below the camera because it takes it too far away. So this mint green line is the line that I am going to be cutting. So I have to go 1 above that. So that's an orange line here. And you just pick up every other loop on that across. It is a lot easier when you are just making sure that you're getting every other one. Once you get started, it's easy enough to just kind of like weave it through. And I stretch it out a little bit so I can see my stitches a little bit easier. But when you get over that, you'll, by your thing, you're in the right row, and just making sure that you're getting every other leg. And I never know if I'm getting the correct leg to make it so that it's, in the front or the back. I never know. I just, when I do my first row of stitches, if my stitch is twisted, I just untwist it before I knit it. But I just stretch them out a little bit so that I can keep my needle in the same row. Did I go up? I think I might have went up a row. Nope, I didn't. My row changed. My color changed. Okay. That's the other thing, just making sure that you don't stretch it too much that you end up moving up a row. Sometimes it's nice when there's a color change. You can follow the line, but sometimes the color shifts. And if you're not paying attention and you're just following the line, you can go up a row and Okay, so how many stitches do I have? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. Okay, so now what I usually do is once I get my 31 stitches, I will try to, before I pushed it too far, before I go too far so that I can go around the corner and get a number of, and still stay in the same row, I'll stretch it out a little bit and I will pick up my next couple of stitches here, because you can adjust these once you are through, but you want to get it going onto the other side as much as possible so it just makes it easier. And you can just pull that through and see how flat that lays. You can hardly see that it's there, but where you know 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32. So just take your needle here and just pull your cord out a little bit. And then we can flip it to the other side and you can pull your needle back so that you're right at the end of it. And then you can go along and pick up the rest of your stitches. Staying in your same line. But you'll know when you start picking these stitches up, they get a little tight with the needle in there. And, not thinking that they were going to get tight with the needle in there, that's why these little, where did I put them? Oh, here they are. These little flexi flips weren't working because the needle was stuck right in here. And it really does make it hard to pick up the next row when there is a needle in there. And you have to pick up the next row and put them on hold before you can cut. The darker one's a little bit harder for me to see here. That's why it's nice to be able to pull them out a little bit and you can find your stitches. I think I got both legs that one. Okay, do we have 32 stitches? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32. Okay, so I'm just going to pull that through. Now, that just lays a whole lot flatter with having the cord in there. And it allows you to really pick up the next row of stitches a lot easier. Okay, so now we got to get the second cord, which is right here. And then we're going to go, we have our space here. This is the one we're going to cut. We go to the one underneath it. And we just start doing the same thing and picking up those stitches. Okay. Making sure it's easier to do the second row to make sure that you're a whole row below once you already have one set of stitches picked up. But I will get this done and I'll show you what it looks like. Now that we have our stitches all picked up, now we're just going to pick out a stitch in the middle, pull it up with our needle, and I usually just keep the needle in there and hold it up like that so that I can get a good cut on it and not snip anything else. And then, yes, cut. You made your first cut. Okay, so now we just pick the stitches out. I usually will go one way for a while and then go the other way. It just makes it easier. Gets too long and it's just hard to pull through. So I try to just do it halfway around and then go the other way. But you can see your stitch there that you need to pick up, and you can just get your needle in there and pull it out. This takes a little bit of time. Just be patient with it. Don't pull too much too fast. Because if you didn't get your line perfect, you'll have a lot of extra stitches. So it just take your time when you do this. Okay. Okay, so when you get to the other side, the cords kind of get in the way a little bit. You just have to move them out of the way so that you can still get to your stitches. But this is where you want to make sure before you just start pulling that your cords, that you're pulling the stitch in between your two cords. Because sometimes you think you're in the right area, and as you pick up stitches, you realize you moved up a half stitch or a stitch, and you're taking out the stitch that is actually your needles are in. But this is where it tends to get sometimes a little hard because it's long, but you don't want to cut this because you need this end to weave in. So you don't want to cut it. You want to leave it as long as you possibly can. Once you have it, then you can cut it if you need to. But right now, you just don't want to cut it. So you just want to be a little bit careful as you're taking it out. Go about halfway around here and then go back to the other side and start on the other. And then I just gradually, and the more you pull it apart, the easier it is to see the stitch that you need to pull out. And I don't cut this because I do not want to have too short of a cord. And I usually go about halfway with this one, and it's a little tight because they are very kinky. It doesn't matter if you've did your sock tube a day ago or you did your sock tube a year ago. They're going to be just as kinky. It doesn't really matter. Okay. And that's not quite halfway. Okay, that's about halfway. So now I just go on the other side. I don't need to drop those on my toe. And then I just start pulling out the stitches here on this side. And of course, it's going to go easy for a little bit. You can take out your marker because you're going to pull it out anyways. But again, once you get to the end, just be careful to make sure that you are in you didn't pick up the row that you're pulling out. And the first couple of times I did this, that's exactly what I did. I got to the end and I was in the row that I needed to pull out. So then I had loose stitches. So I had to pull my needle out and pick them back up. It doesn't seem like it's a big deal to pick up stitches, but sometimes you just don't get them in the same row. You think you are, and you just don't. Sometimes you make it the first time. Sometimes you don't. So divide my needles here and go around the corner. If I can lay that flat, that might help. See my stitch there that I need. Trying to make sure I'm not in the stitch that I'm taking out. That's always the worry. And if you are, just go from the other side. I don't know if I am. I can't see my stitch. So I'll go back to this side and pull out, just in case I am in the stitch that I'm removing right there at the corner. And it's not that bad when it's right next to the needles, because you can easily just back your needle out a little bit and, switch your stitches. But you can always go from the other side. You always take it out from all the way around from one side. You don't have to. It just usually is easier when you have shorter yarn to pull through. And as you can see, the closer you get to the end of it, the easier it is to pull the stitches apart. And the more you pull them apart, the easier they do come apart. I'm just going to cut the end of this off because it's just frayed and it's catching. It's almost like there's a knot there. Okay, cut the end of that off. Let's see if it doesn't come out a little bit easier now. Oh, yeah. It's pulling up a little of the stitch back there. Okay, let's see. Okay, where are we at here? Yep, that's my stitch that I needed to pick up. Okay. So we are in. So there is my stitch that I'm removing, but I didn't get it picked up. Let's see if I can. This is where it gets a little bit difficult and fiddly and kind of very frustrating when you have all these extra cords in your way. Okay, very fiddly at the end. I ended up getting into the wrong stitch. So I picked up my stitches, got my yarn divided, and I'm just going to purl these last 3 stitches with the end of this so that my yarn is on all the same row. Okay, so here is my sock tube already cut off, ready to go for putting on the toe. We've got 1 cut already. To remember that this is coming down, we need to mark the top of this so that we know this is the top of our sock. Because this is how our sock came apart. So we need to mark that, so that's our sock. But that is going to be it for today's part, and that is picking up our stitches and cutting the tube. Like I said, it gets a little fiddly. To make sure, for one, you got to make sure that you're in your row when you are done. Next video is showing you all of your toes, cuffs, and then how to figure out and pick up for your heel. But that is it for today's video, guys. I hope you are enjoying the series, and I hope if you are a sock maker and you want to try sock tubes, you do. They are fun. Like I said, it is a little bit fiddly in the beginning, but once you get it down, it is very easy. I would suggest, if you're going to be the very first sock that you're going to do, I would suggest doing it on DK weight yarn, because the stitches are easier to pick up. You can see them a little bit better, and it's just a little bit easier. And the other thing that I've noticed, I don't like knitting my socks on 1 ply. They look nice. Now this knits up really, really nice, but it is a 1 ply, and it's very splitty when you go to pick up your stitches. I have a hard time with a 1 ply, so I like at least a 2 ply, if not a 3 or 4 ply when I'm using the yarn to pick up for socks. So just keep that in mind. You don't want a real splitty yarn. You want something that's going to stay twisted together so that when you go to pick, you can easily find your stitches and only get that one leg of the stitch, not pick up a hair or something from the other one. That's what I ended up having here. I picked up part of another stitch, and so I ended up having to pull my needle out and pick up those, leave the stitches, remove the yarn, and then pick up after that. But, like I said, it's a little fiddly, but it works, and it's what you got. So, okay, so that is it for today's video. I hope you guys are enjoying it, and we will be back in part 4 of this video. Okay, that's it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.